Hello, I'm happy to share some of my thoughts on the theme of the conference, Strategic Human Resource Practices, to be organized by the Loyola College Chennai. I was supposed to be present on 24th January when this particular meeting was scheduled. We were all ready, and 23rd I was getting to be prepared to come there, but unfortunately because of the disturbances in Chennai, I had to cancel the last minute, and even the Loyola College canceled the meeting last minute. And when they have rescheduled this, I am very, very sorry that I am not able to be present and share my thoughts with you live. I have therefore offered to give my thoughts so that you people will not be disappointed that I am not there. So these are some of my thoughts on the future directions of HR. These thoughts are purely from my own kind of experiences. I am not a HR guy. I started as a mathematics, physics and chemistry student at Loyola College, Vijayawada. That's where I did my pre-university with NPL and then my BSc with MPC. After I graduated from there, at the suggestion of the principal of the Loyola College, I ended up doing my bachelor's in education. That's where I met a professor who suggested that instead of pursuing the career I wanted to pursue as a chemist, he said that you have an aptitude for psychology and suggested me, and in fact even written a letter to the head of the department of psychology at Osmania University, who is again from Tamil Nadu. He was at the time very well-known professor of psychology who started the department at Osmania University. He went out of way to admit me, though, although I didn't have a BA in psychology, on the basis of my BEd, which was because of the Regional College of Education at Mysore, which was started with a collaboration with Ohio State University. So he made an exception and admitted me to do my master's in psychology. I topped the class at the time, and I was told that I created a new record, marks, which I think for several years I assume remained a record mark. Now the situation may have changed. So I learned my psychology at Osmania University with some of the best professors in psychology at the time, and my education from the Regional College of Education. Now we call what in those days called as education now as Human Resources Development. Like the Education Ministry was renamed as HRD Ministry several years after people like me have done our BEds and so on. Why I'm saying all this history is because it is very important to know that human resource development is essentially, conceptually based on understanding human psychology. You cannot do any human resource development unless you understand the nature of people. And you learn about the nature of people when you do a course like a bachelor's or a master's in psychology, where you read books, you interact with people, you understand the tests, and you spend 2 to 3 years. After my master's in psychology at Osmania, I also started teaching psychology at Andhra University, and subsequently a large part of work I have done in the years that follow were based on my work at the Osmania University Masters in Psychology department. We formulated the concept of human resource function, human resource development and human resource function in the year 1974. My colleague Dr. Uday Parikh at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, he joined IIM Ahmedabad in 1972, and I joined in 1973. And my colleague Uday Parikh was invited by Larsen & Toubro to re-examine their performance appraisal system and suggest some modifications in that. That is when he invited me to join him. So we both collaborated. He as a senior consultant and I as a kind of a a youngster working with the Organizational Behavior and Education Systems group at the IIM Ahmedabad. So we examined the performance appraisal system in L&T. We interviewed a large number of people. One of the persons I happened to interview in those days subsequently became the chairman of L&T and earned a lot of good name for Larsen & Toubro, and that is Mr. A.M. Nayak, who was a manager in those days. And he gave, I still remember, a very dynamic person, giving a lot of ideas on performance appraisal, what it should be and what it should not be. The essential part of our recommendations in those days was that if you have to appraise performance of anybody, you have to define performance. You have to help the person to understand what he or she is expected to perform. And it is not enough to define what the person is expected to perform. It is important to create conditions for the person to perform. And what do you mean by creating conditions? Understand his aspirations and motivate him, provide all the technology and all the equipment that is required for the person to perform, and then periodically review whether the person is performing or not, and help him to recognize what the person is good at, what he is performing well, not performing well, and along with the person, identify strong points, weak points, and then lead to performance improvements. All this we felt was possible only if certain conditions are created in the organization. And these conditions are continuously making effort to build competencies of individuals. If you don't have competencies, people cannot perform. And also understand what motivates people and create conditions for motivating them. So competence building, commitment building, and then to create a larger organization, culture building. These were the three tenets we formed, and we said merely revising performance appraisal is not going to help Larsen & Toubro. You will have to have a human resource philosophy. That's when we use the term human resources, people philosophy, and promote happiness at workplace, constantly help people in the organization to get direction, and with competencies be able to perform and receive rewards for whatever they are performing and so on. That's when we conceptualized the human resource development as continuous competency building, helping individual to build his or her own competencies as an individual, helping individual to build competencies required to perform the roles that are assigned by the company currently, and also helping the individual to acquire competencies required to perform the future likely roles, and help the individual to contribute to teamwork and organizational effectiveness and so on. I think we broadened the whole understanding of the performance, and then identified the performance appraisal system as just one of the systems. And we suggested that the L&T should be more interested than merely tinkering with performance appraisal system, creating a human resource development philosophy and a separate department. Larsen & Toubro accepted these suggestions in toto. Larsen was still around at the time. Mr. N.M. Desai was the president of the company, and there was a full board meeting that was held. We presented our findings, and in toto these recommendations were accepted, and L&T decided to initiate a new department called Human Resource Development Department and keep it as a part of the President Personnel and OD. I think that's a position that was created. And that is when Uday and I wrote the second part of our consulting report, which dealt in detail with the principles of designing human resource function. I'm saying all this because both Uday Parikh and myself belong to the psychology tradition. Both of us were PhDs in psychology. We learned psychology, of course, and we both were bachelors in education. Uday Parikh also did his teacher training, and I did his. So in whatever thinking we had in the year 1974 and 1975, we were influenced by our background, both of education, where you help people to learn, students to learn, and adults to also learn, and things like that. And our understanding of psychology theories of learning, theories of personality, how individuals differ, and how environment has an impact on the individuals. And subsequently, when we started working on either the education system, how education can influence the entire society and things like that. So that is the background of our formulating the human resource development systems and human resource function. This background is very, very important to understand, and particularly the fact that a lot of what we do in human resources deals with the understanding of people and helping them to do better things. And that is what is going to be the focus of my talk today on the future directions of HR. If we have to give any future directions for HR, we have to understand what is HR, people, and their psychology. Without understanding the psychology of people, it is very, very difficult to give any future directions. Before I give any future directions, let me recapitulate very quickly what has happened in the last 40 years since the time we started the first Human Resources Development Department in Larsen and Toubro, followed by State Bank of India and the associate banks of State Bank, and after that many other organizations. I think HRD has become a great term between 1975 and 1985. For about 10 years, many people were somewhat struggling to understand the HRD philosophy. Fortunately, by 78 itself, we wrote some articles and books and so on, but however, in India, we are more fascinated with reading books from other countries and not so much from books within India, unless you are already an established philosopher or a psychologist or a yogi or a yoga proponent with mass following and things like that. So unfortunately, our books were read by very select audience, and Dave Ulrich did not arrive into the field by that time. He only became a quoted HRD expert by about mid-90s and so on, and I'm talking about mid-70s to mid-80s. So some organizations who read the book and understood our philosophy invited us, with the help of us, started with good intention Human Resource Development Department. But these can be counted on our fingertips. This included a public sector company like Bharat at Mose in Bangalore, where I even spent about a year trying to set up the HRD function. And besides the State Bank of India and its associate banks, other public sector undertakings started curiously looking at this concept of HRD. But interestingly, by 80s, some of these organizations borrowed something from US, because simultaneously in US something interesting was happening. And what was happening in US was they were renaming training and development, enlarging the scope of training and development and calling it human resource development. So in USA, the training and development was renamed as HRD. In India, HRD evolved as a philosophy, as a new department. But as usual, we read a lot more of the American literature than the Indian kind of literature. So very quickly, people followed what was happening in US and renamed the training departments in India as HRD colleges, HRD institutions, HRD centers, and things like that. So we had a group of companies who renamed the training as HRD. Another group of companies, fewer ones, who were looking at the HR philosophy as formulated by Uday Parikh and T.V. Rao. But a large number of personnel people and IR people were looking with curiosity in early 80s about what is happening. And as they observed that this HRD is gaining currency, either through the little bit of writings that we had done at IIM and courses we started, or from the American tradition with training being renamed as HRD, personnel people started looking at HRD as a concept. And suddenly by about early part of 80s, 1982, 83, personnel departments started taking a large part of their interest in HRD. I must mention here the HRD department, although we started as a separate department in Lawson and Tobro, we conceptualized it as a part of the larger personal function, which we renamed as human resource function. In fact, if I have to conceptualize the way we thought of this particular function as HR function consists of both the worker affairs, which is I think traditionally called as IR, and personnel administration, which is personnel management, and human resources development. At the bottom of the Maslow's need hierarchy, at the bottom of the pyramid is the most important thing, and that is the IR. Without having, and we didn't want to call it IR, we called it as worker affairs, because they are the backbone of any organization. So we said that, look, the IR and worker affairs is the most important part. You'll have to learn a lot about it, and unless you do that, you will not be able to develop. Then personal management, which provides stability to the organization. And HRD is growth. So we said peace, stability, and growth. All the three are focal points of human resource function. And peace by worker affairs, or the IR. Stability by personal management, and HRD by through performance management, career planning, succession planning, feedback and coaching. And nowadays you add potential appraisal, promotion policies, assessment centers, 360-degree feedback, employee engagement surveys. All these are development activities aimed at competency building, commitment building, and culture building. So development is a higher level order. Stability, personal management is lower level. Now here, please do not underestimate the importance of a lower level order. When I say lower level, it actually is a higher level. It is like whether we consider food, sleep, air and water, all these kind of things in Maslow's hierarchy, basic needs. These are the lower order needs. In reality, these are the higher order needs. But we don't call them higher order needs. We call an invisible self-actualization as a higher order need, and call the need for food, love, belongingness as lower order needs. The same way, I'm saying that IR is a lower level. Lower doesn't mean that it is not to be given significance. Now, for me, lower is more significant, because if any time if there is a threat of strike, I think you stop all development activities and you attend to that. So that is how peace becomes the most critical element of the HR function. But of course, when peace is there already, because your lower level needs are satisfied, then you start going for higher level needs, and that's where self-actualization or ego and social needs come into picture. And so is the development. And I think Maslow's need hierarchy can very well be applied to human resource function. Whenever IR issues take over, development suffers. And in fact, that is what exactly happened. 24th activity, in my view, at Loyola College was a development activity. But the 23rd, unless aims at even the basic kind of thing, when a particular culture and a particular system in a culture is threatened, how do people react to it? So that's an indication that if basic things are not fulfilled, people will not let you function. So we had to postpone the entire function because of the unrest that took place in Chennai and other parts of Tamil Nadu. Very understandable. So that is why we even say that, look, don't take IR for granted. If you have a good IR and you have peace at a given point of time, we should thank all those who helped us to do that. Focus on HRD, but all the time continue to maintain your sanity in terms of managing your IR better and things like that. So by about 1982-83, the personnel departments found that the new species called HRD managers are getting into prominence and talked about. And when they looked inward, they discovered that HRD is very much a part of personnel, and which in my view is really correct. HRD is a part of the HR function, and the personnel management is also a part of the HR function, and IR is a part of the HR function. But looking at the new prominence, the personnel department said that, look, it's high time that we also go with the world trend, and they redesignated the personnel department as human resource department. Now it is very interesting. Human resources development is HRD, human resource department is HRD. You can redesignate a training department and call it HRD. You can redesignate a personnel department and call it HRD department. You can also create a new department called Human Resource Development Department, then you call it HRD department rather than HR department. Well, this confusion set in by about mid-80s, and that is one of the reasons why we set up the National HRD Network. In fact, I went to XLRI to start a Center for Human Resource Development, essentially to promote the HRD philosophy we formulated as L&T, because L&T was kind enough to give a chair at XLRI Jamshedpur. And as a part of the chair, I have initiated this particular activity. And also as a part of that particular chair, we had a seminar in Delhi with the help of Larsen & Toubro, and in 1985, and that is where the National HRD Network was conceptualized and took birth. That's a little bit about the history about HRD. So not the entire movement by 1985 in HRD was to promote the human resource development as we conceptualize. Now, after that, many things have happened. I think HRD in some ways got prominence, and many new terms came into existence. If you look at the last 2 decades, particularly the last 1 decade, talent has come to forefront, employee engagement come to forefront, happiness at work is being talked about, competencies and competencies at work is talked about. So you find a lot of new terminology coming, and sometimes even the departments are being renamed. And you have new designations coming like a chief learning officer or chief knowledge officer, or you can even call it a HR facilitator, and so on and so forth. A lot of things have happened. I think this is because the focus on HRD has been reasonably good, I must say, in the last 2 decades, for human resource development. That doesn't mean that everyone has understood and has done a great job. So this is the kind of a scenario. And what I'm going to very quickly go through as a part of my talk is to share with you some of the principles that we have used in HR in 1975 itself, and also share with you from the context of whatever developments took place in the last 20 to 30 years in the human resource development function. How do we reposition or reorient ourselves in terms of HR? And what is going to be the future of the human resource, future directions for HR? This is what is going to be my talk. I want to start by saying today a large number of people in the last 2 decades have recognized the importance of talent, recognized the importance of people. Today we say there is no business without people. People have become very important, and we have taken them for granted in the past, but now it is inevitable. More and more CEOs, more and more people are talking about human resources. So it is HR world today for those who recognize this, because everything centers around people. If you have to go have somebody who can think of the future of business, you need a good CEO or a strategic thinker, or somebody who can be proactive, who can search all around and things like that. You want to manage your finances, you need a good finance person. You want to manage your marketing, you need a good marketing person and a good marketing department. So you will find that people, competent people, is the center stage for making any business work. Businesses work only when you have competent people. That means human resources, competent human resources. Now, very recently, a lot of literature has come out. In fact, we have had seminars in Ahmedabad with the Ahmedabad Management Association and a number of other agencies. Now, in the last 5 years, if you look at the literature that has emerged, it has become more and more clear that if you don't know human resource function, or if you have not performed human resource function, if you have not understood people and their concerns, you cannot be a good CEO. In fact, a recent article, HBR article, this is just about a couple of years ago, this has appeared, said that chief human resource officers make great CEOs. Now, this indicates the future of HR. If you want to be a CEO and lead business, a small industry, big industry, not-for-profit organization, a state chief minister, a minister of a particular ministry or a department, whatever you want, wherever you want to lead. If you want to be a good leader of a department, of a state, of a country, or of a company or of a function, I think you have to understand people. That means you have to understand psychology of people. That's where psychology becomes very important. So this research said great CHROs are very highly paid because they are very hard to find, which is true. People who understand people and can lead them are very hard to find. Remember what I said. People who can understand people and lead them are very hard to find. And if you find some people who are good at understanding others and can lead them, they are worthy to be CEOs. They are worthy to be CEOs. I was recently reading a very interesting message on WhatsApp. Somebody sent this message. And it's a very interesting message. A CEO of a company decided that he is not going to make any of his children the future CEOs of that company. Nowadays, most children don't want to follow their parents' footsteps. Anyway, good news for all family businesses. But family businesses have to plan for transforming the family business into the hands of all professionally managed people. But in this particular kind of organization, the CEO of a large organization with their outfits like all across the world decided that he is not going to make his children. So he called all the possible senior top-level managers in his company, about a dozen of them, and said that I want to give you a large number of them, not dozen, I think it's more of them. I forget what is the exact number that is mentioned there. Called all the senior managers and told them that I want to appoint one of you as CEO and not any of my family members. But I want to give you a test before I appoint you. And the test is very simple. I'll give to each one of you a seed. And I want you to take it home, plant the seed, and grow it. And tell me after 6 months, get back whatever I have given to you, and show me how much you have grown that particular seed, what you did, what kind of a tree or plant, etc. you have been able to make it into it. So there were all people who took the seeds, and many of them, I think, started taking good care or doing whatever they have done with that particular kind of a seed, and then started sharing with each other how their seeds are germinating, and small plants have come, and a bigger plant, and a bigger plant, and a bigger plant, and so on, and what kind of things were happening. Everyone was reporting, and then once in a while, but there was a shy gentleman who, among these people, was very shy to even talk. But he was shy and not always coming forward. He also took the seed, and he planted the seed, and nothing happened. A week passed, 2 weeks passed. You know, if a seed doesn't germinate in 2 to 3 weeks' time, nothing is likely to happen after that. But he waited patiently, even shared with his wife. His wife said, "Don't worry, you continue to water it, you continue to manure it. If it doesn't, it's okay," and so on. So this man used to go back to office once in a while, talk to people, and hear stories about how the plants have started growing, and he used to feel very upset that his seed has not even germinated. So days passed by, and I think people went on networking, reporting, and sharing ideas with each other, and they did all wonderful kind of things. And at the end of the 6-month period, the CEO of the company said, "Please bring back all that I have given, and tell me your story, how you have grown." And then these people brought, I think, these beautiful looking plants, whatever, with different shapes, all of the same kind of same seed or same type and so on. And some very fat, some very thin, and some in beautiful kind of plots, decorated, etc., etc. And then everyone was very proudly talking and sharing their experience of how they nurtured this particular kind of a seed. So that the CEO listened very carefully to all of them. And at the end was this gentleman who brought back his pot with nothing in it, and saying that, "Look, the seed that you have given is inside. I have nurtured it, I have planted it, and it has not germinated. So maybe there is something wrong with me. I don't know what is the kind of issue, but this is what it is." So the CEO said that this is all wonderful, and gentlemen, I have now decided, now I spotted my CEO. And for me, the CEO is the person who brought back very honestly whatever I have given to him. His seed did not germinate because I have given him a boiled seed. And I've also given the same boiled seed to all of you, but your seeds germinated. That means you did not follow my instructions. You wanted to please me, and you did many things that you wanted to do. Now, I want a CEO who follows instructions and honestly reports whatever he has done rather than. So for me, honesty, integrity is the most important thing, and that is what is the core of my competence selection for a CEO and so on. I mean, it's a very interesting story circulated in WhatsApp I think is to make it a point, but I think it makes a very important point, and the point it makes is that that values are very important for CEOs, and most important thing is honesty in terms of values. I strongly believe this. Many researchers on 360-degree feedback indicated that if a person does not have character, he cannot be a good manager. He can't be a good CEO. Where to talk of CEO, can't even be a good manager. So values are very important. Competencies are very important. Now that is what is the importance of understanding people. So good CEOs have got to be good people managers. Now the study said successful CEOs are largely HR driven. There is an article which I am sure some of you have seen, India Way, published by a Wharton professor. He there's a group of them who came to India, studied many companies, and suggested the India way of successful CEOs, and in which HR figures out social responsibility and human resource development figure out as most critical kind of variables. They have also studied in this Harvard Business Review article. They analyzed the 360 assessments of thousands of leaders in 6 C-suite functions, which included a CEO, CFO, COO, CIO, CHRO, and CMO, in which each executive was ranked on 14 aspects of leadership on a scale from 1 to 7. And they found that traits of CHROs mentioned closely those of CEOs. Successful CHROs are likely to be CEOs. It is almost impossible to achieve a sustainable success without outstanding CHRO, as mentioned by Thomas Ebeling. So, literature across the world suggests that human resource management competencies will make you a possible future CEO if you have acquired this. Now, Ulrich talked about the most desirable competencies for HR professionals. He suggested, I will not spend too much time on this, you can get Ulrich's work from many of his books, including the latest books which talk of global HR competencies. The competency most important, our first competency is strategic positioner, who understands the business context and how it is evolving. He must understand stakeholder expectations and business requirements and be able to translate them into talent, culture, and leadership actions. The second competency is he should be a credible activist who builds relationships of trust and have a clear point of view about how to build business performance. And he should have the capability to build other builders who define, audit, and create organizational capabilities required for sustainability and so on. He is a change champion who initiates and sustains change. He should be an innovator and integrator. And he should be very positive to technology, and he is a technology driver. Well, there is a lot of literature, but we must all understand that the context has changed today. And that is why I think these findings are coming out so prominently in the last 40 years, as I mentioned earlier. The world has become a global village today. Internet, social networks make information travel instantaneously. 40 years ago, when we thought of the first human resource function, it was not there. When I founded the National HRD network, there were no networks, there were no emails. Email was not there. We all had to send mails by postal. They were not even, I think, Sam Petroda was just getting into this country. So this IS, international dialing and international straight subscriber dialing STD, ISD, all those kind of things did not come by the time. Now even they have become. I think you can instantly communicate. So we are today in a changed world as compared to 40 years ago or even 30 years ago. Best practices don't remain best the next day because somebody has already copied and he's talking of the next practice. Now under one roof there are 4 or more generations. So people belonging to Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and also people belonging to the older, those who were born in 1950s and so on, they are still there. So you want to have uniform HR policies for people who have different aspirations, you can't have it. Diversity has increased. Every country is talking about, every organization is talking of diversity. Short tenures of organizational citizenship. It's no more. In the olden days, we talked of lifetime employment, organizational citizenship. Now it is organizational citizenship is only for 2 to 3 years. Every 3 years you shift the job. People have taken more to own their learning and develop careers. It's not anymore organization's business only to build you, it's also your business. There is also a change from career orientation to happiness. People nowadays ask, are you happy in the company, in the organization, rather than ask what is the career the organization can give you, because there is no one who can assure you any career. Competition is taking different kind of meanings and so on. So in these conditions, we should ask the question, what is going to be the purpose of HR function? I would like to maintain that nothing has changed as far as the purpose of the HR function is concerned. It is the same as what it was 40 years ago. The 3 C's, competence building, commitment building, and culture building. Our context has changed, but our principles remain the same. So the future of HR continues to be what it was envisaged 40 years ago. Competence building, commitment building, and culture building. This includes happiness at work and help people to enjoy their work and build human capital in ways that can build intellectual capital of organizations and also service capital of government organizations. They should be concerned about how much service they can, or not-for-profit organizations or NGOs. So the HR has to focus on this. Help employees to understand the context of their existence. Global existence, local existence, national existence, company and roles. Help individuals work for immediate goals and appreciate long-term goals and vision. So short-term goals are going to continue, but long-term goals are very, very important and so on. All this we have envisaged as a function of HR. And in fact, this is documented in the latest edition of this book. I mean, it was not documented now, it was documented almost about 35 years ago when we wrote the first edition of the book, Designing and Managing Human Resource Systems. We have outlined there all the 14 principles which we have outlined in the Larsen-Toubro report in 1974-75. What are these principles? I will very quickly go through the principles and say that the future of HR is in understanding these principles, although formulated 40 years ago, and following these principles. The first principle of HR we designed at that time. Focus on building enabling capabilities. So HR's future, and of course the past also is the same, lies in how much they can build capabilities of employees or people in the organization. Build the capabilities of individuals as individuals. Build capabilities of individuals in relation to the jobs they are currently performing. Build the capabilities of individuals as members of the team. Build capabilities of individuals to service the organization. I mean, this is all envisaged in 1974. Integrate the development of people with organization development. So HR's future focus, like in the past, has got to be constantly integrate and find out what is the way in which people, when they spend about 8 to 10 hours in an organization, can do things which get integrated to achieving the organizational goals. Help employees to assume more responsibility. Individuals should take initiative, become proactive, and take more responsibility through autonomy in decision making and making new experiments and so on. Develop HR to be an integral part of every manager's job. HR should facilitate. In fact, in those days we have said the success of HR is on the day when it is not needed. When you don't need HR, that means that every person becomes a HR manager. You don't need a separate HR manager. Every person manages your HR. So this is the job of HR, to build every line manager to be a HR manager so that HR is not needed. So the other principles in designing HR included attempt maximum participation of people who are affected by it for higher involvement. That means all HR interventions should be based on, I think, taking into consideration the views of people. Balanced adaptation to change. We are changing, we are introducing new technologies, new things every time in the organization. So you need to be balancing. You should learn from the past and change. Stability of those things which have succeeded and also change in the things which may not be succeeding, with always keeping in mind the long-term benefits of something. Balanced differentiation and integration of HR function. You have differentiated personnel into peace, stability, and growth, but you also need to integrate so that all of it works together and things like that. Like this, there are many other aspects which we talk about in the principles behind the designing of HR systems. Besides integrating, also HR should balance both specialization and the diffusion that takes place. Now, by all that it means is the more and more you specialize in any given function, the more and more you differentiate. And when you differentiate, if you don't integrate, then you get into other kind of issues. Similarly, when you specialize, differentiation goes up. For example, somebody is given to take care of recruitment. Now, that person who is given to take care of recruitment as the organization grows in size, he says, I alone can't handle, therefore let me recruit somebody for worker recruitment. And another set of people for supervisory recruitment, and a third level of people for the top level management recruitment. Now the person on worker recruitment was specializes in only contract labor recruitment or contractor recruitment, and all of them together start banking on outside agencies to recruit. So in the process, what happens is means become ends, and sometimes the original ends get affected. That's why we say you can't avoid specializing, but when you specialize, do not delegate the whole thing in such a way that you forget about the original purpose. You need a mechanism for people to learn, and that's why we introduce systems like job rotation and a whole lot of other kind of things. Lift up the level of HR to make it more responsible and perceived as responsible. And I will not spend too much of time. If some of you are interested in knowing more about these principles and their explanation, you should read this book, which was shown a little while ago, Designing and Managing HR Systems. We also design the principles required to make HR more effective. Use each subsystem of HR to strengthen other systems. Balance numbers, quantification with quality. I think is a major issue today. Overusing of numbers and forced distribution results in all kinds of problems. That is what I think we have discovered today. But this has been cautioned almost 40 years ago. Balance internal execution and external help. Over-dependence on outside prevents insider growth. So if you only appoint, you outsource everything, insiders don't grow. Continuously review and renew HR. Use HR to strengthen various functions in the company. And these are all the kind of things we have talked in those days in terms of... in one of my recent books on effective people, I have pointed out the new focal points of HR. I have defined HR. I mean, this book is not meant for HR guys. It is on effective people. If you want to consider yourself as an effective person, I think the most important thing for you to learn is to discover your talent and use it for making a difference in the lives of others. Whether you are a doctor, or you are an accountant, or you are an engineer, or a teacher, or a social worker, or a bureaucrat, or a politician, whatever you are, first find out what you are good at. Second, use what you are good at for making a difference in the lives of others. Third, you multiply helping others. And when you multiply helping others, you become more and more impactful, more and more effective, and so on. So I drew, like the 7 Habits of Effective People by Stephen Covey. I have drawn 8 things that will make you more and more effective, move from being an effective person to a very effective person to a super effective person, and so on. I think these are the kind of things that I have talked about in this particular book. And from all these books that I have written, I formulate the following recommendations, and this is going to be the future of HR. If you, I feel HR offers phenomenal opportunities for people, and I feel HR is not only for HR people, HR is for everyone. I'm sure in the audience there are a lot of people pursuing commerce, maybe some of you are pursuing science, and you may be pursuing other disciplines of management, which may be marketing, which may be strategic thinking, and not necessarily HR. If you pursue HR, acquire HR, and get on to do something else. My suggestion here, and that is going to be the future of HR people should think ahead of their CEOs. CEOs are too busy achieving short-term goals, because without it, they can't make their balance sheet right. So they are largely balance sheet oriented. If they are balance sheet oriented, they may not have adequate time to understand what is going on across the world. So when you find such CEOs, you should think ahead of a CEO. You should know your market. You should know your customers. You should explore. That's why I said, if you have to think beyond your CEOs, find out the context, explore what is going on. So you will be the first person to listen to the finance minister's budget speech. It's very important. Don't expect that is the job of the finance manager or a CEO. Sorry, I mean, you listen to finance minister's speech, you will find a lot of HR in it. It's very, very important. Same thing, your CEO's speech also will have some HR in it. So you must be one thinking ahead of the CEO, finding out context, exploring and disseminating global context, national context, country specific, sector specific, and so on. So you should know business, you should know how to do business. You should have a global view of your products, markets, services, business opportunities. You should know other cultures. You should understand your employees and customers and your vendors. You should look for business opportunities, build teams, build global competencies, and educate global trends. Educate your CEO of global trends, benchmark in all functions. So this is the first thing. Second competence that you need as a future for HR is influence the thinking of CEOs and business heads. So it's not enough to think ahead of them. You should also, with the knowledge you have gathered, influence the thinking of your CEOs by communicating with them, build your personal credibility, manage your routines, manage your time, and you should remove the traditional image of HR. You should be able to use multiple sources of information, and the best practices you bring it to your company. You also need to restructure. The future of HR also lies in restructuring HR's role and structuring it effectively. You must read some of these books like the Human Resource Champion of Dave Ulrich and so on. You must structure it in a way you simultaneously take care of peace, stability, or growth. And you need to constantly balance these three. You should build teams, periodically conduct HR audit, and ensure there is a self-renewal. The fourth thing that you need to do is to develop leaders and leadership competencies in your kind of a company. How to get them to do 360 and benefit from 360-degree feedback. And think of other kind of leadership development programs. A number of them are talked about in my book, 100 Managers in Action, I think. Another thing that the HR leaders should do for the future is to learn constantly from the new younger generation of people. Learn from Gen Y. Because Gen Y is so well connected, they seem to know a lot. And if you don't understand the Gen Y, you won't be able to be a good HR manager. Interact with Gen Y. Many times when I am invited to speak, I throw up my hands and say, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person to speak because I'm yet to understand the younger generation. I sometimes find it difficult to understand my own children, and even much worse when it comes to the grandchildren and so on. So you need to understand what is going on, interact with Gen Y, read books, magazines like Business Today, Business India, Indian Management, and so on. And from these, understand, learn, and so on. Then another thing for the future of HR is to make the corporation innovative by promoting innovations. Design your own HR systems in an innovative kind of a way and create a culture. And finally, a seventh task of a HR manager for future is to aim long term. Most CEOs are constrained to think short term. In such cases, I think it is the HR person who has to think long term. That means you have to also learn to be able to live longer in the same company. balance short and long-term goals, build structural relationships in human capital, and so on. Of course, in the end, I would like to say, unless you learn to respect individuals and people more than systems, you will never be able to be successful kind of a HR manager. I think the future is of those who can get the best out of their own and others' talent. This is the biggest challenge for HR people. You have to get the best. As I mentioned in the beginning, these are the days of HR. Don't misunderstand me that when I say these are the days of HR, these are the days of HR managers. These are not the days of HR managers who have allowed themselves to be dominated by administration and waste their time finding only agencies who can promote outsourcing policies and so on. Any HR manager who is remarkably known for appointing other people to help him as consultants is not, in my view, a good HR manager. A good HR manager is one who understands people and helps the top management to think ahead of all the competitors, everyone around, and influences the policies and makes people feel happy working with the company and derive a sense of pride from that particular company. So that's why I say future is of those who can get the best out of their own talent. You should get the best out of their talent and others' talent. And I want to wish you all the best. And once again, I apologize for not being able to be with you on this wonderful occasion. I'm sure you will pick up more from my talk as well as from my books. There is a lot of it available in the books that I have written, and I'm sure you will be able to procure some of these. And you're most welcome to contact me, send me a mail. I would appreciate any feedback you have. I have given my mail ID here, tvrao@tvrao.com. I would strongly encourage you to visit our website, www.tvrls.com, and also an online learning portal that we have developed in the past. You will get many more ideas, and you also get some of my videos on this. All the best. Thank you very much, and I thank Shiv Kumar, and I thank all the other organizers for giving me this opportunity in spite of my being not able to be physically there. All the best and have fun.